But we do start this week with something a little more heavy and difficult to talk about, and that is the recent online abuse that Shotzi Blackheart has been receiving following the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Now, for those of you who didn't see the pay-per-view, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match was reportedly a bit off, for lack of a better phrase. There were apparent botches by many of the participants in the match. And from all reports, Shotzi had a pretty rough night. She admitted as such, but there was an extreme amount of hate and vitriol sent her way online, especially on Twitter, in the days following that match, to the point where she eventually ended up deleting her Twitter. Now, she did come out later on Instagram saying that she wasn't necessarily bullied off of Twitter, but rather that she has been having some personal things going on in her life, and she decided that she didn't want to read any of these negative comments coming her way and bring her into a worse mental state. So, Danny, I'll start with you here. I think it's fairly obvious to almost anybody who is online in wrestling circles that the anonymous nature of the internet and just the amount of shit that happens on there has led to this becoming more of a prevalent thing, where just there's so much bullying and just shit throwing and name calling that goes on and is directed towards these wrestlers, that I'm not surprised that this eventually happens to a more high profile wrestler where they just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Okay. How do I want to approach this? Oh, well, Shotzi, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. She got out of the kitchen. And you know what? I never liked that idiom or saying or whatever you want to call it, because then you'll starve, right? How are you going to make food? Like, come on, you got to get in the kitchen. Anyway, that being said, you know, she took it in jest. She said herself, I can't wait to see this on Botchamania. You know, she was lighthearted about it. But when it's like constant, never ending, and it's, again, like you said, just anonymous faces saying shit they would never say to your face, you know, you get sick of it. And Shotzi's had a rough year. She lost her dad like 2 months ago. Like, that's still a fresh wound. So yeah, she's in no position to deal with that kind of shit, and she's in no position to deal with it. Yeah, she had a rough night. Cool. It happens. It happens. You know, it happens to everyone. It happened to multiple people in this match. Raquel had a rough night. Becky missed a spot. Alexa Bliss was there. Hell, Liv hitting her final spot of the match didn't even come close to making contact with Becky. But it's okay, because you know what? You know who didn't care? The live crowd there. You know who didn't mind? The live crowd there. You know who gave this awesome chance to that match? The live crowd there. Because you know what? You know what this match didn't look? It didn't look choreographed. You know what match didn't have botches on this show? The SmackDown Women's title match between Ronda Rousey and Natalya. And you know what match sucked more than this ladder match? That match. Because it felt rehearsed. You could feel like it was two people memorizing spots that they pre-planned, as opposed to professionals who just go out there and call it on the fly, or have an idea, but, you know, everything isn't to a fucking T. So a sloppy ladder match sounds more realistic than a acrobatic, nothing goes wrong ladder match. I don't want to defend these botches that bad, because a lot of them were just botches, and that's okay. But, like, you know, some of these botches are like Raquel not being able to deadlift the ladder with two bodies on it, you know, like, oh, what a fucking joke she is. Or, you know, Shotzi losing her balance with someone on her shoulders and falling backwards, and then both hitting ladders, you know, like. And I think, I don't want to shit on the fans or anything, but I think if she doesn't drop Alexa in that spot, at least 15% of the online hate she gets doesn't come, because, you know, Alexa has some of the worst fans in the world. But you know, that being said, as wrestling fans, we kind of suck. We do. We really kind of suck. Like, it's one of those situations where we, not that WWE is not at fault or not someone that deserves shit, but like we're so quick to give shit, and to the point where sometimes I feel like WWE is almost right to ignore us sometimes. You know, we're unpleasant. We're maybe not as bad as Star Wars fans or Rick and Morty fans, but like we're not too far off, you know? So I don't know. Like, yeah, like make a joke. That's fine. Like she could take the jokes. Clearly, she said she had no problem with that. But bro, just say someone has to get fired. Or it's like, unless that person was like Nia Jax, you know, you're kind of out of line. I don't know. That being said, fire Jeff Hardy, AEW. What the fuck? I'm sorry. Anyway, Chad, Rev, opinions, thoughts, concerns?
I will agree that I kind of enjoy the realism of ladder matches where there are not botches, but where not everything is so perfect and pristine. You know, because
that match should be crisp. It should not be crisp.
Yeah, it's a fucking ladder match. Like, people should be falling. I don't even care if they're planned falls. Like, people should be, you know, missing ladders and, you know, or in spots occasionally because they're ladders. They don't cooperate. Like, you know, when you're trying to climb and jump off of them or jump through them.
You sounded so much like a WWE announcer right there.
Thank you. You just want me to do the big announcer voice. But they don't, and that's the point. So when these things happen, I'm kind of okay with it. Now, granted, I think there's a line there where after a certain point, you're just having a really sloppy match, but it does add to the realism. And I will also agree that there are some seriously militaristic fan bases within wrestling. You mentioned Alexa. I know Sasha has some. I know all the Shield guys have them in a little bit of a different crazy way, but they have them. And when one wrestler does something to impact that fan base's favorite wrestler, they all attack, and it can get really ugly. And that's not something that's limited to wrestling, as you mentioned, but man, it's really bad out there sometimes, Chad. Oh,
wait,
go ahead,
I want to throw in real quick that, again, because I said, you know, who didn't care, the live crowd. Shotzi was over with the live crowd. She got some chance. There were people rooting for her. And, like, you know, pretty much everyone in the match was over. Literally the only person that wasn't over was Lacey Evans, who got booed every time she tried to climb the ladder. Keep in mind, she's a babyface right now. But anyway, I'm sorry, Chad. Yeah.
I agree with a lot of your point. There were some flubs, and not just by Shotzi at all. I would like to take a moment just to let Shotzi know when she hears this, because we're the top rated podcast on YouTube. Duh.
She's gonna listen.
Absolutely. Shotzi, I'm talking directly to you. I would like for you to allow yourself some grace. These things happen. You had an off night. It happens to the best of us. Like the guy said, it's a ladder match. It's supposed to be clunky. You're supposed to bring real effect to it. We're supposed to see trip ups and flubs and botches. Not too much, of course, but it is what it is. Allow yourself some grace. Also, the best life you are ever going to lead is offline. So I always champion when people step away from the internet, because the internet is a dark place unless you know how to use it correctly. With that being said, stop being bullies, people, unless it's for a good cause, if that makes sense.
Actually, I don't want to push back on anything you just said, but you guys just being a bunch of pushover snowflakes. Like, you know, Shotzi needs to man up and just stop fucking up moves, and then this problem won't happen. What are you gonna leave? You're gonna leave the internet because people were mean to you? Get out of here. Get in your fucking tank and run them over. I just 180'd on the joke I was making, but you know,
Dan Lambert, everybody.
I'm gonna no victim blame here, but at the same time, just run them over with your tank or beat them up, because all the people saying this to you, you can beat them up. At least 95% of them. So
I'm going 99.
okay,
0.9. Shotzi, log out before SmackDown and just log back in afterwards. It's that simple. Don't let people get to you.
You're being real optimistic about her being on SmackDown, but
yeah, you gotta Jay and Silent Bob it, where they look up everybody who made fun of them online and they go to their houses and just kick the shit out of them.
Log out while you're in catering.
No, Shotzi, just be better. Okay, you can look back throughout this whole show, every episode we've ever done. We've never messed up. We have not once stuttered over our words, tripped up, said something incorrect. We are always on point, 100%.
Never had to stop posting midway through the show because you kept fucking things up. No, it never happened.
It doesn't happen. We've never messed up. And all the people tweeting at you, they've never messed up either. So, like, I know it feels rough and it feels harsh and it feels like they're being unfair to you, but these are people who don't mess up. They don't understand what it is to make a mistake because they're perfect. So you got to understand that we just see it as you not being perfect, and we don't understand why you can't be perfect, because it's so easy. You just don't mess anything up ever, and you don't have these problems, right? Does that make sense? I feel like I explained that pretty well, right? Even Shotzi should be able to get it. She shouldn't mess this up too, right? Like, she's good to go now, right?
That was drier than a martini. The only other thing I would like to say is
never mess up.
Yeah, well, it is unfortunate though that because these people are such public figures, and their job sort of dictates it, they do need to be online to some extent. I don't know any wrestler that isn't, like, you know what I mean? Especially in WWE, there are very few who aren't online in some capacity promoting their brand, or promoting WWE. So many people, indie wrestlers, have just made themselves more popular through Twitter, through Instagram, through Facebook, through YouTube. Like, there's part of this job, or that job rather, that you need to be online, and unfortunately, just your presence there can open you up to this abuse, and it should be unacceptable, but it's really difficult for that to be reined in, and it just absolutely fucking sucks.